Okay, friends, here we go with book number 2 called The Lonely Lake Monster. Now, some of this in the first couple of chapters is going to be a little bit of a repeat of information that we already know, because as we know, when authors write series, they typically have to recap sort of who the main characters are and what's gone on at the beginning of every book, so that if a person decides to pick up this book and hasn't read the first book in the series, they can understand the characters and sort of what's going on. Chapter 1, Pot o' Gold. Pearl smacked the alarm clock until the loud beeping stopped. Is it morning already? She thought. As she rolled over, something crinkled. She rubbed the sleep crystals from the corner of her eyes and she rolled the other way. Crinkle, crinkle. What was that? Reaching under her pillow, she pulled out a piece of paper. She still couldn't believe it hadn't been a dream. What Pearl Petal held in her hand was a certificate of merit in the art of Sasquatch catching. That's right, Sasquatch catching. And it was signed by Dr. Emerald Wu, veterinarian for the imaginary creatures. This was not the usual kind of thing found under a 10-year-old's pillow, like a comic book or a blue jay feather or a secret diary. But it was the last weekend that had been kind of unusual. Last weekend, Pearl met an escaped Sasquatch, a real, live, breathing, furry, smelly Sasquatch. And being a clever girl, Pearl captured the Sasquatch and returned it to Dr. Wu's Hospital for Imaginary Creatures. And that was when she earned their certificate of merit. She had done such a great job that Dr. Wu had made her an apprentice at the hospital. And today was going to be the first day of the apprenticeship. Maybe Pearl would meet a centaur or a fairy. Perhaps she'd even meet a unicorn. Susan Petal, Pearl's mother, walked into the room with a basket of folded laundry balanced on her hip. "Wake up, sleepyhead," she said. Pearl quickly tucked the paper under the blanket. As Mrs. Pearl opened the dresser drawer, Pearl's mind raced. Where could she hide her certificate? Beneath the mattress? Nah, too obvious. But where? What time are you supposed to be at Dr. Wu's? 8 o'clock, Mom, Pearl said. She had set the alarm for 7 to be certain she had plenty of time to get ready. She didn't want to be late on her first day. Are you really sure you want to do this? Said Mrs. Petal, dropping 3 pairs of rolled socks into the top drawer. Your father and I still expect you to get all of your chores done. Pearl stiffened. I'm sure. I am totally sure. I am really sure that I want to be an apprentice. She blew a lock of blonde hair from her face. I don't understand why you are so excited to work at a worm hospital, Mrs. Petal said with a shake of her head. Because it's not really a worm hospital, Pearl thought, but she couldn't say that. The sign on the hospital's gate read, Dr. Wu's Worm Hospital, but that was a big old fat lie. No one was supposed to know that Dr. Wu worked with imaginary creatures. Pearl had only found out because of the Sasquatch incident, and afterward she had signed a contract of secrecy. Because, worms are cool, Mom. Cool? Mrs. Petal opened another drawer and looked tenderly at her daughter. Well, I guess working in a worm hospital is something for you to do. I knew you do get bored at the store all day. Your father thinks this apprenticeship might keep you out of trouble. Her gaze darted to the newspaper article that was framed and mounted on Pearl's wall. Fire Department rescues girl, stuck in tree. Again. Pearl frowned. She didn't get into trouble on purpose. She certainly didn't want to be on the troublemaking list. But Buttonville was a very, very boring town. Many of the shops had closed down along with the bowling alley and the toy store. Most of the young families had moved away, and there was almost nothing to do. So Pearl had to be clever. It wasn't her fault that other people didn't always like her clever ideas. I was just trying to get a woodpecker's nest, she reminded her mother. I didn't need the fire department. I know how to climb out of a tree, Mom. Well, It's too bad that Dr. Wu runs a worm hospital and not a bird hospital. You could show the doctor all your lovely nest collection. Mrs. Petal tucked the T-shirts into the drawer and then closed it. Don't forget to eat your breakfast before you leave. Laundry in the hand, she left the bedroom. As her mother's footsteps faded, Pearl threw her blanket aside and scrambled out of bed. Her corner shelf was cluttered with old board games. She opened the lid to a game called Pot o' Gold. The golden pot was filled with plastic playing pieces, leprechauns, gold coins, and rainbows. What a perfect hiding place. No one in her family had played the pot of gold in years, so she stuck the certificate of merit into the gold pot, set the lid back on, and then she ran to the bathroom. 5 minutes to shower, 5 minutes to dress, 5 minutes to eat breakfast. That would leave plenty of time to walk to Dr. Wu's. Soon she'd be beginning her apprenticeship. Her scalp tingled with excitement. What wondrous creature would she meet today? Chapter 2, Lemon Face. Pearl had no idea what an apprentice should wear, so she selected her usual clothes. A pair of shiny basketball shorts that hung below her knees, a plain cotton t-shirt, and a pair of sneakers. The shorts were navy, the shirt was white, and the sneakers had once been white, but after 5 months, they were now the color of mud and starting to fall apart. She pulled her long blonde hair into a ponytail because she liked the way it felt when it swayed back and forth as she walked. Besides, if her hair was hanging in her face, she might miss seeing something at Dr. Wu's, and that would be a shame. Her breakfast plate sat on the table. Scrambled eggs, toast, and ham were still warm. Using all 3 ingredients, Pearl created a breakfast sandwich, something she liked to do whenever possible. Eating a sandwich for lunch was normal, but Pearl enjoyed eating them for breakfast and dinner too. Spaghetti sandwiches were delicious and much easier to eat than spinning the noodles, and meatballs made great sandwiches, as did tuna casserole, scalloped potatoes, and her all-time favorite, French fries and ketchup. As she chewed, her parents' muffled voices drifted from the stairs. The Pearls lived above the dollar store, which they owned and operated. It was one of the few shops still open in the little town of Buttonville. In the old days, almost everyone in Buttonville had worked in the button factory, creating handmade buttons that were sold all over the world. But no one worked there anymore. Cheap plastic buttons became more popular than the exotic once produced at the Buttonville factory. Buttons from materials like cedar, or porcelain, or oyster shell. And for the last 5 years, the factory had been vacant. The lawn had grown into a weed-infested field. The windows had darkened with dirt, and the concrete walls had become drizzled in pigeon droppings. But Dr. Wu had recently taken over the old building. She lived there now, along with creatures Pearl used to think could only be found in storybooks. She finished her breakfast sandwich, drank a glass of milk, and hurried downstairs to the dollar store. Pearl's parents were busy unpacking boxes that had recently been delivered. They both wore green aprons embroidered with the slogan, "You get more at the dollar store." Pearl's apron hung on the hook near the cash register. She wasn't going to be needing it today. Pearl's father, Peter Petal, pulled a pair of yellow flip-flops from a box. "Look, just in time for the nice weather." And then he held up a blue pair. "These are your size." "Great," Pearl said, and she kicked off her sneakers and slid her feet into the rubber shoes. They fit perfectly, and they matched her blue shorts. "The mirrors came in," Mrs. Petal said as she opened a different box. Inside lay dozens and dozens of plastic mirrors, some big enough to hang on walls, some small enough to tuck into a purse. This was the best part of owning the dollar store. Boxes arrived a few times a week, filled with all sorts of things, tubes of toothpaste, striped socks, glitter pens, sometimes even chocolate, and Pearl could keep whatever she wanted. "Why don't you give this one to Lemon Face?" Mrs. Petal said as she held out a tiny pink mirror. In her rush to get to Dr. Wu's, Pearl had almost forgotten to feed the bird. She grabbed the pink mirror and opened the cage. "Hi, Lemon Face!" And the yellow parakeet was looking busy into the silver mirror that Pearl had given him a few months ago. She clipped the pink mirror in the cage and then filled the seed and water trays. Lemon Face scuttled to the end of his perch and began to twitter in his reflection. He seems happy, said Pearl as he looked at himself in the mirror. He thinks he's made a new friend, Mr. Petal said, opening another box, this one filled with greeting cards. That's why he stands there all day and talks to his reflection. Pearl shrugged. Made sense, especially since Lemonface's brain was about the half a size of a chickpea. I'm glad you like your new friend, Lemonface, she said, and then she closed the cage and glanced at the clock. 7:30. Oh, I gotta go. See you later. Hold on, young lady. Mrs. Petal removed her dollar store apron and grabbed her purse. I'm going with you. Huh? Pearl said, whipping around. But why? Well, I need to meet this Dr. Wu before I give permission for you to work as her apprentice. Pearl nervously tapped her toes against the flip-flops. You don't need to meet her. She's really, really nice. I promise. Your mother needs to meet her, Mr. Petal said as he began to set the greeting cards into the rack. We can't let you spend the day with someone we have never met. Pearl frowned. But the hospital was a secret. No parents were allowed. No one was allowed inside. Dr. Wu wouldn't like this. But what are you waiting for? Mrs. Petal asked as she held the dollar store door open. She smiled, her tooth-gapped smile, which matched perfectly Pearl's tooth-gapped smile. You don't want to be late for your first day, now do you? Pearl shook her head. How would she explain this to Dr. Wu? How would she keep her mother from trying to get inside the hospital? Was her apprenticeship over before it ever began? Gosh, I hope not. Tune in tomorrow.